For today's call or scaling clinic, what I want to go over is part 2, which is going to be social media content, right? So this is one of the more unique and nuanced things that in 2026, if you're not doing this, you're just being left behind. So last week, what we covered was just the social media content, but from the profile perspective, actually setting up the main profiles. I'll go over and recap in a second, just in case you didn't watch that training. But today I want to go over what we do to actually post on these platforms. And this is really where the money's at. I've spent close to, put it this way, I'm pretty sure I pay consistently like $5,000 to $10,000 a month just for access to education on this, in addition to all the money I've spent on the front end years ago. Okay, so that's how important this is. Nowadays, if you guys have been following any, I don't expect you to follow any streamers, I don't either, but if you see streamers or you see those guys that you continually see popping up on your social media feeds, it's for a reason. They're making money off of just the platform. Okay, what we're talking about is actual conversions, right? So I'm going to break this down in a second, but essentially don't make this seem like, hey, you know what? I got to like dance on TikTok or review some cookies on Amazon. No, that's not what this is. What we're doing is we're focused on content that will lead to conversions, which is businesses signing up. Or if you do have some type of other business, or maybe you have some consulting agency, this will lead to you getting more clients also. All right. So what I want to do is this. Let me pull up my screen. All right. So let's go over social media content. All right. And this is strictly in regards to conversions. Okay. The frameworks I'll go over will work for anything, and you'll start realizing after this, you're going to start judging other people's content. It's going to be very funny, right? Because I have a lot of friends in the marketing space that some of the bigger influencers you guys probably know too. And we talk about this all the time, like algorithm changes and things like that. But the fundamentals really do not change when you talk about this. Okay, so just to recap, right? Because last week we talked about the profiles to set up for your business. Because again, we're focused on conversions, not personal brand. But again, you can apply this to personal brand. So the main 3 I like to start with, because there's a plethora of different businesses you can do. But the main 3 is going to be that Facebook page. So setting up an actual Facebook page for your business. And the secondary one is going to be that Instagram account. We're going to set it up as a business format. And then we're going to set up a LinkedIn company profile. And one of the questions I had between now and last week was, hey, I am currently in a career. I don't want people to see this as my other venture on the side. Maybe it's a conflict of interest, banking policies, whatever. But as long as you set up the company profile and you don't post, you don't cross post, you're not gonna have any issues. You're just gonna be an admin of that page. And you'll be surprised. There's a lot of people that are admins of different pages, like social media managers. Their personal friends aren't gonna see that they're there unless you put they actually work there. Okay. So those are the 3 that we want to focus on first when it comes down to profiles. Okay. Now let's actually talk about content. So here's the big thing. Okay. It's the why. Right. So again, I'm huge on this, guys. I am absolutely huge on understanding the reason why you do something. Because if you don't know why, let's just be frank, you're wasting your time. So I told you that 2026 and on, like if you don't have a social media presence, you're going to be running into some issues. Okay. Well, before we even get into that, you have to think about this. If I were to tell you there was a method that was free, and it's going to lead to you potentially making or generating more revenue or creating more conversions or like expanding whatever business or opportunity you have, is that something you want to do? Well, absolutely. So it's the reason why we do social media content, because it's the one thing in the history of marketing and everything that you could literally spend 0 and generate revenue. It's the one time in our history. You couldn't do that with the yellow pages, the white pages, Wikipedia. It doesn't matter what. But social media has made it an equal playing field. So no longer do we worry about these massive corporate marketing budgets. Instead, we're talking about, hey, you know what? What can the individual do and connect with these companies? So for you got to think about it like this. This is one of those instances where the effort you put in directly correlates to you generating more revenue or generating some type of conversion that happens. Because again, this applies to everything. So the secondary reason is going to be ad costs. And here's the reason why. So advertising, like paid ads, when you're running ads for whatever, all it is a piece of social media content that you've thrown gasoline on. That's it. So think of like this small little fire that you have, and you say, hey, awesome, there's this freaking large gasoline of like 91 unleaded fuel. I'm just going to pour it on top of it, and it rapidly grows. That's it. But here's the thing. If that fire fundamentally is flawed, so for example, it doesn't have the oxygen, it's like contained, there's water all around it, like it's on top of this little raft that's only 1 foot wide, the fire's not going to grow. It doesn't matter how much gasoline you put on top of it. So that's the same thing with advertising. So when you think about this, the ads are literally just posts that would have converted anyway, but you just threw some gasoline on it. So when I talk about lowering costs, once you start getting better and better content posted on your business page, etc., all you do is decide, hey, you know what? this is working. I'm just going to put some ad dollars behind this, and it's going to work really well because it's just going to attract more people because it's being spread out farther. And then there's the trust aspect. So I bring this up because I had a message the other day. It says, yeah, I can't really find any information other than X, Y, and Z. So take a step back and think of your company name, whether it's cryptopayments.com or cryptocoinrefunds.com or whatever it is. That's your brand. Now, talking to a business owner and they say, hey, I potentially want to work with you. Let me look you up. And they Google your name and nothing pops up. Well, if you have a phenomenal conversation with them, they like you anyway, sometimes it doesn't matter. But think about that thought that goes into the back of the head. It's a small little thought, but it's just the uneasiness, the uncertainness of what? I don't know. There's the things I don't just know, right? And it's like that Michael Jackson song, I feel like somebody's watching me, right? But it's just like they can't put their finger on it. They just don't understand. So the reason I say this is because when you have the presence, you actually increase the trust of that business owner that you're looking to work with. And nowadays, with the advent of AI, language learning models, and if you watch any social media content in the last year, sometimes you're like, is that real or is it AI now? So think about it this way. I heard this from this was a marketing talk a little while back, but they mentioned this. They said the biggest thing right now is going to be who can post the most content right now, whether it converts or not. And the reason is not going to be because of conversions or anything like that. It's literally just going to be a presence. So think about it like this. Imagine you go to a house and it's been around for a while, or a business has been around for a while. It doesn't matter how much business they've been doing, but the fact that they've been in business for 20, 30, 40 years between all the conflicts, the financial turmoil that we had in the economy, different wars, etc., you naturally trust them a little more compared to the new business. That's just the way it is. So if they say, hey, we have a 25-year warranty on our stuff, they may only get one client a month, but the fact that they've been established creates trust. So nowadays, with the advent of AI and a lot of user-generated content that's just not real, if you have timestamps from a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, they know, you know what, there was no AI behind it before then, so I can actually trust this person. And believe me, it's actually happening. I get messages all the time. I had an advertisement that did really well. A lot of people liked it. It's like, nice AI. Huh? What are you talking about? So I went through the ad. I was like, what's going on? What is this person talking about? Maybe it's like this, maybe it's an actual like edit that we did or something. It's like, there's nothing. It's just me talking to the camera. But the camera was so good. It was just like this nice Sony camera that the videographer had. They edited it so well. The contrast was well. It was 4K that they said there's no way there's lack of imperfections on your video, so you're fake. So think about that for a second. That same person, if they go to my profile and they scroll down, like, oh no, this has been established for years. But in that split-second decision, they think, oh, nice AI. So this is one of the biggest reasons why you want to do this, because trust, okay? So now that we understand why we actually want to do this, let's talk about platform-specific content, right? Obviously, there's all these different platforms you can post on. The main three that we mentioned, like I said before, is going to be Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, okay? What we're going to focus on today is going to be LinkedIn or Instagram, but I want to talk about the different platforms and different type of content that usually works if you were to decide to do those. So number one is going to be TikTok. So when we go to TikTok, I'm not advocating for you to post on TikTok right now, but I just want to break down like the things that actually work there, right? So with TikTok, because we want to make sure that the platform specific content, meaning that when you go to that platform, you expect to see certain things. So if I go to Instagram, I'm not expecting to see a 96-minute long video. I'm looking for videos that are usually 15 to maybe 30 to 45 seconds. If I go to TikTok, what am I looking for? I'm looking for short form, like shorter videos that are vertical and they have a caption that I read. I'm not looking for threads. I'm not looking for something I'd find in Wikipedia. So with TikTok, if you are going to post on there, we typically want to stick to this. You can do threads like images and slide across. That works also. But when people go to that platform, they're looking for something specific like this. Then when you go to Facebook, so when you actually post on Facebook, the platform itself, usually you're looking for long form content, okay? And what I mean by that is you're looking for something that's more educational, it's more well thought out, it's more like an article, but just shorter. So you're usually looking at a few hundred words or something like that, versus TikTok might have a few hundred words, but it's compressed into 10, 15, 30, maybe even 45 seconds if it's really captivating. So we typically want to educate through Facebook. And you're going to have something along the lines of an image, like a static image that's there. Because if you do a video, it turns into a reel and then you can't see the caption. So we typically want to have an image. And you might cover news there too. Because if you notice, when you scroll through Facebook, you see a lot of news. So it'll be a banner or it'd be some type of cover page. And it'll say, breaking, this truce just happened, or breaking JP Morgan did this, or et cetera. And then there's some education about that. So that's typically what we want to stick to Facebook for what works. Again, can you post whatever you want? Yes, but this is typically what's going to be more consistent to what people are expecting on Facebook. And then for LinkedIn, we're looking for more technical information. I say this because with LinkedIn specifically, it's more of a job board, but that kind of is it's a quasi social media platform, but it's not. So think about the person that's on there. Even if that business owner is there or they happen to see the post, essentially it's typically going to be some type of manager, some mid-level manager, some owner, et cetera, that has their job title in their actual profile. And so when they're on there, it's more professional based content. It's not as much as the entertaining stuff that you start finding on social media. It's going to be more educational, more technical breakdowns of things. So here's 5 reasons why the job market's failing. Here's a reason why the economy is contracting with AI, or things like that, where it's education. And they're typically going to have the technical details broken down pretty simple. And then you're going to have an image with that too. Okay. So this is what typically works right now with LinkedIn. And then from there, we start talking about Instagram, all right? So if you notice, if you just compare Instagram to all the other ones, you start realizing there's a lot of different content types that perform on Instagram, but these are the different types you're really going to stick to nowadays. Okay. So yes, you can do live videos on there. Is that going to be their best bang for your buck? No, you might as well spend that same 20 minutes generating content that works for the next 2 weeks. Okay. So we'll start with threads. So for threads specifically, what this is think of like Twitter. When you go on Twitter, there is the post number 1 and then post number 2, and it keeps breaking down into a thread that you unroll. Well, that's what works a lot, especially nowadays in 2026 and going on in Q2. Threads work really well. And then you start looking at carousels. So with carousels, the only difference with this is it's more going to be images. Nowadays, you can combo, right? There's a few different things you can do. So for example, think of the thread as just text. That's usually 160 characters or less, roughly, for the thread, or maybe more if you educate, but you lose people's attention. So it's short form. The carousel would be that same thing with an image. So it might be an image of you smiling or you holding a device. And then from there, there's some small writing on there. Then it goes to the next thing. So the best analogy you can give yourself is this is going to be a comic book. So when you're going through a comic book, you know how it goes like pow, and then it goes the caption of like what's actually happening, and then maybe some dialogue, but it's roughly like 20 words maximum. Same thing with this. With carousels, it's more the image is complementing what the text is actually saying. And then from there, we have reels, right? So reels are going to be one of the harder things to master. And the reason why is because the video drop-off rate happens really quickly. So if you're going to dedicate the most time to anything, I would typically avoid reels, maybe add them into the mix to help out. But the reason why is because these are going to be a lot harder to master, to get people engaged, to stick with it. And there's a lot of short form copywriting tricks you do to maintain the person going in there. And sometimes there's something as simple as a thing that stands out in the background. Like imagine there's like a dancing bear behind me on this wall and I'm just talking. You're like, what the, does he not notice the dancing bear behind him? But that's kind of the idea with the reels, where that's the engagement that happens there. Or obviously we have the talking head side. So when we talk about talking heads, what this is simple. You have a phone and you hold it up to you. Usually it's going to be vertical length or a little higher than yourself. And you're going to be talking to it because you're not going to talk down to somebody. So you're going to usually be talking to the camera, and you're going to usually be breaking down some types of news event, some type of educational event. So the way you want to think about this is LinkedIn is more long form. You're writing paragraphs on that post. The talking head is more, hey, this thing just happened and here's why it matters to you. So that's one of the biggest differences here. Okay. Then this is going to be one of the easier things you can post because it's a green screen. So essentially you just record yourself. You can use the Instagram Edits app and then just have a picture behind you and then just start talking. And that's the type of content it is. Okay. And then of course there's the clickbait content. So you see this on Instagram all the time. Sometimes there'll be like a article. It'll be a headline and it'll be, 66 troops die. You're like, whoa, what the heck? And you realize they posted it, but it actually happened 6 years ago. But they did that to hook you in and they educate you on it. But then you're like, wait, why'd you tell me this right now? And you realize it's just for the engagement. So usually that's what it's going to be for clickbait type content. We typically want to avoid this because you're usually not going to attract the right person, which is not going to be that business owner. But this is what that is. And then from there, we have comparison static images. So you'll see sometimes we've had some of these posts also where you compare to two different things. So you might have an actual image, and then from there it has like a credit card processing terminal. And on the other side, you have like a crypto payments, or you have, the speed it takes for this to happen, or you have the chargeback likelihood or something like that. But essentially you're comparing two things, and because it's contrasting, it attracts other people because they have to give their opinion. Everyone wants to give their opinion. Okay. So that's gonna be for Instagram. Now let's talk about mastering the platform. So remember I mentioned how there's all these different platforms, right? You can just notice I mentioned a few different ones. We didn't even go into X and YouTube because YouTube is just more long form videos.